Right, welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to be taking a look at the box office, but also from the perspective of Sonic the Hedgehog and I guess sort of critic narrative, right? So we're going to be looking at critics versus the audience versus the studios, because Sonic was an interesting one to watch play out. Sonic is a movie that the critics needed, and again, I say this, they needed it to fail. Right? And I know that's probably a bit of a weird, controversial statement to make off the bat, but it's really important, okay? It's really, really important, because when we look at what critics praise versus what the audiences like versus what the studios do, there's a very keen balance going on. There's an equilibrium that needs to be kept. Now, critics currently do have a narrative that they're pushing. It only needs to be seen across the board. You know, critics really do have sort of, well, very much agenda-driven, political-based movies get more of a higher score than anything as simplistic as a Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Now, I really like Sonic the Hedgehog. Got no issues with it at all. I really like it, and I think it serves its purpose. It's a good kids movie. It's harmless, good fun. But when we compare it to the likes of, say, Birds of Prey, which came out around the same time, and even the likes of the Joker, again, we do need to compare it to the Joker as well, we're looking at a critical bias between everything there. You know, the harmless kids movie and the harmless kids movie that then the studio listened to the fans, because that's important in all of this, basically needed to fail, because critics and their bias needs to be pushed. Now, studios sort of hang in the balance there, because they initially listened to critics. 9 times out of 10, they initially listen to critics because they believe that they are the voice of the audience. But all too often now we're seeing a big disparity between the audience's score and the critic's score. And studios hopefully are now starting to listen to the audiences, and also these types of videos where you guys actually sound off in the comment section more so than critics. And this is why, again, I do say this, critics needed this movie to fail to endorse themselves moving forwards in the studio's eyes. Now, we'll get to that again a little bit more further down the line, but let's take a look at the box office recap, because Sonic the Hedgehog has absolutely smashed it. Again, box office, Sonic the Hedgehog speeds past Call of the Wild with 26.3 million. That's crazy. It's doing really, really well. And like I said, it deserves to do well. It's a harmless kids movie. It's wholesome. It's fun. It's all about friendship and family. And it's a good movie. It sings very good moral messages to children without being ham-fisted and offensive with it. It's just nice. And it's funny. And I can't wait for the sequel, which they've teased. So in its second weekend, Paramount's Blue video game hero outpaced Harrison Ford and a CGI dog to take the top spot at the North American box office, so America. In a tight race between Paramount's Sonic the Hedgehog and Disney's Call of the Wild, it was the Hedgehog that beat out Harrison's Ford and a CGI dog at the North American box office this weekend. So basically, Sonic has hit past 100 million milestone, and that's just at the American box office, which people say is, you know, really, really important, and it is to a certain degree. But you know, it's got 106.6 million domestically, and internationally, it's grossed 38.3 million. So a big taking worldwide, in fact, and it's opened in 16 more markets, so including Russia, Sweden, and Taiwan. It'll just continue. It will genuinely continue. Now, the $87 million family film stars Jim Carrey, James Marsden, and Ben Schwartz as the voice of the titular blue hero. The movie opened with a record 70 million over President's Day weekend, which is great. That's a great weekend. It's the highest grossing. It was the biggest grossing box office opening weekend for a video game movie. I had a brain fart then. My brain didn't engage, which is great. Like really, really, really solid, really good. And especially for President's Day weekend as well, people are out and about. So yeah, it did really, really well. Now, Call of the Wild, starring Harrison Ford in the latest cinematic adaptation of Jack London's classic novel, debuted to 24.8 million, which is great. What a good debut. Harrison Ford's not exactly a draw anymore. And this is the thing which we'll talk about as well. Like, names are no longer draws. You know, we've seen it time and time again. You know, Tom Cruise isn't a name that draws in audiences anymore. There are some people that still draw in big audiences, like, of course, but Harrison Ford's not really one of them anymore. If he was returning to Indiana Jones, then yeah, people would go out and see it. But for newer properties where he's just an actor in them, he's not a draw. So 24.8 million is good. So I'm singing its praises here, like that is actually good. Which surpassed early projections, which actually just had like high teens. And internationally it took 15.4. But it did open in 40 territories. So that's a big opener. But still really good. You know, 40.2 million, really, really solid opening. And then, you know, Disney chief of distribution said, you know, it's a beloved classic, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, Harrison's performance is good. And people really praise the CGI dog in that. I haven't seen it. It doesn't appeal to me, and it probably won't appeal to you, my audience. So it's not something I've rushed out to go and see. But the CGI dog, I have heard, is fantastic. So, you know, props to them for making that and pulling it off. Now, the family movie, directed by Chris Sanders, inherited by Disney following its acquisition of Fox, boasts a hefty production budget of 125 million to 150 million before marketing. So big. But it's not really had any marketing, so it will still struggle to make any of that back, FYI. And then we get down to Birds of Prey, which really is important here. So Birds of Prey, Warner Brothers' Margot Robbie-led DC anti-hero movie, took 6.7 million, which was in its third weekend, which again is important because we're going to then take a look at some other bits and pieces surrounding this. Now, the third spot, obviously that's what it took, third spot, which is not a huge surprise, and that was third spot across the weekend. Internationally, it took another 10 million, but across massive markets. I mean, 78 markets is a huge opening. Now, its global total is $173.7 million, which actually is not that much. It still hasn't broken even properly. I've trying to get into the mathematics behind this to make people understand is just insane. We're not going to get into it again. There's plenty of articles out there which will indicate it still hasn't broken even. The production budget doesn't mean that that's broken even. You have to make a lot more than that. Anyway, so Bad Boys for Life, bearing in mind this is its 6th week in theatres, took 5.9 million. So pretty damn close. I mean, literally $1 million or so underneath, well, just over $1 million underneath Birds of Prey in its 6th week. That's crazy. Now, its domestic gross is 191 million, and its worldwide box office is $379 million, which is crazy, I think, personally. Okay, now the rest of it's not really that important, right? We don't really need to get into the rest of the box office. And we had Brahms the Boy came out and it hit pretty good numbers, actually, to be honest, 5.9 million. Not bad for its opening weekend. But now we get on to the topic of Sonic the Hedgehog needing to fail. Why did it need to fail, right? Well, Sonic the Hedgehog was something which the critics don't like, okay? As evidenced by this. They don't like Sonic the Hedgehog. Why? Because there's no overt agenda or moral policing going on with it. It's a harmless kids movie, and it has just a harmless good message about friends and family. Birds of Prey, on the other hand, is something that the critics needed to succeed to endorse themselves. And it's exactly the same, okay? It's exactly the same when we then take a look at The Joker. The Joker was something which the critics needed to fail. Similarly with outlets that were reporting negatively on it. They needed this movie to fail, okay? Exactly in the same way that they needed Birds of Prey to succeed, because it endorses themselves as a legitimate voice for the audience by which the studios then listen and pander to, okay? Because literally critics are given their legitimacy by studios, okay? Critics are only as powerful as the audience that listens to them. Now, currently, the audiences and the critics have such a huge disparity between them. I mean, this is just insane. Okay, 548, 66,000, that's quite big. Sonic the Hedgehog, for instance, okay, 13,000, 94, 63, only 187 watched it. It goes to show that more people are interested in watching Sonic than the critics were interested in watching it. And those that were interested didn't even like it. Critics are not the voice of the audience any longer. We're starting to see more and more that studios are listening to, again, I'm not saying my channel, but channels that have reviewers on and the audience that compare, comments on those channels, studios are starting to take a look at them a lot more. So it's that kind of moving away from old media versus into the new media. But this is why critics needed Sonic to fail, because it just legitimizes their own argument. It gives them a better look in with respect to studios. So there you go. That's kind of my roundup discussion of Sonic. I'm glad Sonic is succeeding. It deserves it. It's harmless family fun. I'm really, really glad that it is succeeding at the box office. And again, a lot of people will probably disagree with my comments on all of this, but I stand by them very, very firmly. And like I say, you only really need to take a look at what critics are reviewing hugely positively these days to really see that they have their kind of bias and their agenda. So they really do need those films to succeed to continue having discussions and being taken seriously by studios. Because the more and more this disparity happens and is very prevalent and is pretty obviously there, the more studios are less likely to give a crap what critics think. And it can be seen straight across the board. Birds of Prey is one of them. Sonic the Hedgehog, again, these three goes to show it. I mean, Joker was one of the biggest ones ever. The amount of hate and vitriol that film received versus the monumental praise. I mean, it took over $1 billion, for God's sake. It just goes to show that there definitely is something there. And like I say, studios listen to critics because they are seen as the voice of the people. They are no longer the voice of the people. It is literally independent channels like this, which have their audience they gravitate to, they have their voice, they can vocalize it. And studios are starting to listen up more and more to channels such as this. Not mine in particular, but channels like this. So anyway, what do you guys think about this? Do you think Sonic deserves it? Do you think there was any standouts, surprises with respect to the box office? Let me know down below in the comment section. And as always, if you want to stay up to date on the world of pop culture and movie news, then please do hit that subscribe button. And also make sure you do turn bell notifications on. It really helps me out and it really helps you out stay notified. Also, the 4th video in a day is not being notified, so really important that you do just keep checking back for videos. Anyway guys, thanks so much for watching. As always, I've been Mr. H. Take care.